and welcome to Down with the Browns. And welcome back to another episode of Down with the Browns. You're here with your hosts, Christian and Manny, and we have a very special guest today, the Buffalo Man himself, Mac Blank, a writer for the Cleveland Stampede. What's up, man?
What's up?
What's going on?
Dude, I'm glad you're on the podcast with us tonight.
Absolutely. Great opportunity to talk some Browns here, man.
Yes, sir. If you mind, just give us a little insight on the Cleveland Stampede and what you've been writing about.
Okay, gotcha. So my thing is, I played football growing up, high school and college. Mm-hmm. I've sat in the film rooms a little bit. I love eat, sleep, breathe football. My thing is that I don't want to do fluff pieces. I don't want to do speculation. I want to take what is there on paper, what I can prove is real, and interpret that and put it out for everybody to see.
It's awesome, man.
Let's go.
Dude, and I read a little bit of your stuff and got some good work out there.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate that.
Very knowledgeable on Twitter. Very knowledgeable.
Yeah. And in today's episode, we're going to talk about a little quote from Mary Kay Cabot on Tom Brady coming to the Browns.
Absolutely. So this quote is taken right from the Orange and Brown Talk podcast. Mary Kay Cabot, Browns insider at cleveland.com, says, quote, "I would be on the phone with Tom Brady's agent and I would give him whatever amount of money he wants for 2022. I would throw everything at him, every dollar you can scrape together. Then you still have your first round pick. You can get Garrett Wilson, and Chris Godwin would probably sign here. Gronk would then want to come here as well." Unquote. That's at the 29:52 minute mark. What do you guys think about that?
Well, first I'd kind of point to the interview with Bruce Arians today, talking about if Tom Brady came out of retirement, they wouldn't let him walk, and apparently the price on Tom Brady is 5 first-round picks.
5.
So you can't really draft Garrett Wilson, and I don't really believe the Browns can afford Brady, who's going to want probably about $45 million. Chris Godwin wants probably about 20. You got to pay Gronk. So I don't know. It's just not. I don't want to knock it, but it's just not reasonable.
Yeah, man, we just got to get rid of Baker Mayfield at any cost. So let's put the team into debt. Let's get rid of the future. Let's just go ahead and send him Myles Garrett too. Let's do that. Denzel Ward.
Send him away.
Yeah, we'll do that. We'll send all that for him.
It is scary to me to think about the fact that there's a lot of reporters for Cleveland representing Cleveland, and the national media looks to some of these members of the media for Cleveland, and they put them in their shows, and they reference them, and they bring up these points, and I know this made headlines because of Tom Brady being brought up by MKC, and it's stuff that's sad like this because realistically, come on now, this is not happening. You know what I mean? I think the last thing Brady's going to do is go from Boston, then down south to Florida. You know, I love Cleveland, but I don't know if he's going to want to come back up here and play in a division where he has to play outside versus 3 in-division opponents. You know what I mean? Right out 3 divisional opponents who play outdoors. You know what I mean? So it's like I don't know. To me, I'm not trying to all power to her, but They were cracking up in that podcast after hearing it, so I'm going to assume it was a joke there.
Yeah, Brady's the GOAT, no doubt.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Him coming to Cleveland, that would shock the world. Like headlines, season tickets would go skyrocket, even though they went up the past 5 years. Jerseys would be selling. Cleveland would be the talk of the NFL if that happened.
Absolutely.
But 5 first-round picks, no. God, no.
Yeah.
Absolutely,
you might as well just sell the team at that point.
Yeah.
You're going to have to.
But, one thing about the quarterback position, and Andrew Berry had a press conference today at the Combine, and he pretty much just solidified once again that Baker Mayfield will be our quarterback in the 2022 season. he said that he's talked with him a little bit, or he talked right after that surgery that he had, and kind of just confirmed that everything was going good, and he's ahead of schedule. No, that's Conklin that's ahead of schedule.
Yeah. Also, Jack Conklin's ahead of schedule as well, and I know he talked a little bit about that. And he talked in his presser about there's no plans to shake up the offensive line. So, they're planning on bringing back the former first round pick Jedrick Wills. So, I think they're going to keep him at left tackle. He was talking about. So, I think that is very comforting to know that there's not going to be any big changes on the offensive line. And if he has faith in Jack Conklin, then I do too, because at the end of the day, I really do trust Andrew Berry. Mike, what do you think?
Yeah. History leads me to loosely trust Conklin, and it's nothing against him. I mean, you truly can't. I mean, you could take measures, steps to take care of your body more. And especially those NFL guys. I mean, everybody has a workout guy, a nutritionist, but he hasn't started 16 games in a long time. Now, not to say that I don't trust the development of James Hudson, but there also needs to be a backup plan for Jed Wills, because this ankle wasn't just last year; it was also the year before. So it's now. There are also things mechanically that I wish that Jed Wills would also improve on. Now that could have been his ankle, like slowing him down in terms of his pass set and getting out of his stance. But it's people say that it's a prove it deal for Baker. If Juice were to come back, it would be a prove it deal for him. But it's also a prove it year for Jed Wills. I mean, this guy's a top 10 pick, and he did not, even when he came back, he was still just not where he needed to be, and giving up 49 sacks, which was third in the league, not very far behind the Bengals, who had the most. That position needs to be solidified. So with the development of James Hudson, there also needs to be a contingency plan for left tackle. So definitely something they need to address this offseason.
Yeah, and where he just restructured that contract, it opened up $4 million. We could that could go toward re-signing a backup for Jed Wills, and just allow Hudson just to kind of play that right tackle, get him used to that one position instead of having him floating across the O-line like we pretty much had everybody doing last year. And one thing that I noticed, I mean, this is kind of a segue off of the tackle position, but this is like across the whole team. The injury bug was just nasty last year. Yes, it was. And it's, I mean, you could say it's on like just one guy, his like their ability, but like when it's the whole team, you got to think it might be the medical staff, because they were clearing people that probably shouldn't have came back. Like I think Jed Wills, the first time he came back way too early. Jarvis came back real early.
Well, if you look at every single player that had major injuries last year, they all came back too early and got injured again. You look at Jed Wills, you just brought that up. Landry, in the first game that he came back, he twisted his knee again. Jack Conklin came back for like 2 plays against Pittsburgh, and then he was out again, came back, and then on the very first couple minutes, like again, DPJ had that nagging groin injury. So it's just like, now
Greedy
granted,
Williams in that as well.
NFL, Greedy Williams, true. It's an NFL organization. I mean, these are the billion-dollar franchises we're talking about here, but 100% they're putting that medical staff under the microscope. Now, COVID necessarily doesn't help, because they can't bring in those independent contractors, guys that aren't team the consultants that they bring in. So that might have to do a little bit with it as well. But I can imagine by next season, especially with, the all the info that we have now and the advancement in COVID testings and, what terms of positive, all that stuff, that might allow some of those independent guys to come back into the picture. And, emphasis on taking care of these guys. And if they need to sit them out. It's not worth it to lose them, for like a half a game. They come back and then they're injured. Now they're gone for 3. So
I
Yeah.
I completely agree with what you're saying, and especially for a season that's longer now. You know what I mean? You add in that one game. That's one game of high contact. Going full speed, hitting. You know what I mean? And twisting and turning the corners and things like that. And so, I know you have played football in your life. So, one of the questions that I have just popped in my head is like, I know John Johnson was talking about doing some extensive yoga, or I know a lot of other players or a lot of other teams are just talking about different things to bring up in the off season. Whether it be, I've only ever played lacrosse and I've only taken ice baths, but like, are there any things that, just try to give us some insight on some things that could potentially help? Is it your, aerobics or, pool stuff, or what do you think?
It's all of that. So first, just to look at it at a basic level, nutrition, what's your body weight at?
Yeah.
How well you're moving, what's your core strength. But a big thing is also too, is that extra workouts, whether it is aerobics or, in the pool. Hell, I'm 26 and sometimes I wake up and I feel 45.
Yeah.
And I have to spend about 10 or 15 minutes to warm myself up before I even, and I'm talking about and that's just with my shoulder. Could you imagine guys that have multiple, you have to do kind of extra exercises just to get everything moving again.
Yeah.
So, now, not to say that they don't take those precautions now. Especially during the season when they have practices, a lot of these guys aren't actually practicing. They're just dressing and they're just making sure they can put weight on what they're, what they have injured. So it's, it's definitely that extra stuff needs to be implemented, because the big thing is, and I remember talking to, like an old friend of mine. His dad was a doctor, practiced in Pennsylvania and in Ohio. He was a big Steelers fan, which was fun to go over his house and then get laughed at.
Yeah.
But his big thing, what he talked about a lot, was flexibility. Because a lot of these tears happen. It's, everybody's focused on weight training, but not necessarily flexibility. So when you're not fully expanding those muscles, they can tighten up to the point where, it can just tear.
Right.
So, which, you see a lot of it now. That's why I see a lot of guys on those BOSU balls, doing balance drills, a lot more band training, kind of stuff like that. Now, of course, you have the video of Nick Chubb squatting 495.
Yeah.
And by the way, that's the quietest 495 squat I've ever seen in my entire life.
Yeah. He got that up
that was gross. That was gross.
I'm like, bro, why isn't this man breathing right now?
He's Batman, dude.
Oh my God, that's just nuts. But yeah, no, it's definitely, to them it's a job, and you got to take care of the body. So it's just like whatever you can, that extra work. Whether it's, you're working on your rotative muscles in your shoulders, or making sure that your hips stay loose, kind of things like that. Ice baths.
Yeah.
Lots and lots of ice baths. But,
Yeah. And, hopefully next year we don't have that same problem, and hopefully the medical staff, they kind of get everything under control. Everything's more like a healthy 2022. That'd be great. And speaking of 2022 and next year, coming up, I think in like 13 days, we got free agency.
Absolutely. So we can totally go around, poll the room here and just kind of see what are some free agents that you guys are really interested in. And obviously, I know right off the top is wide receivers. I know a lot of people are interested in their wide receivers, and I truly believe I see a lot of Chris Godwin going out there. A lot of Chris Godwin, 6'1", 208. He's 26 years old, and I think that he's a guy that the Browns fans would like to go after.
Yeah. Sure. Well, we're Vegas favorites, I think, for him at plus 750.
750.
Yeah.
So Vegas is wrong sometimes. I wouldn't mind him in a Browns uniform. What do you think, Mac?
I absolutely love him. I don't even care that he's coming off the injury. The dude's extremely explosive, great hands, good frame on him, very tall guy. But and I would put him in the same group as Devontae Adams and Mike Williams. The expensive sport car. Of course, we want the expensive sport car. We want somebody that can go fast. We want the big engine. Right? Yeah. But it's all about what you can afford.
Yeah.
And after years of dealing with OBJ's contract, we ate $15 million this year just on that. And then now everybody and their brother's talking about Jarvis's contract, right? $16 million. So I really, now granted that only Andrew Berry knows what Andrew Berry's going to do, right? But all signs are really telling me that like 12 million is probably going to be the highest that he'll go, especially with a top 15 pick here that he can easily snatch a very dynamic wide receiver, and it's not really going to cost much.
Or even two dynamic wide receivers, because the draft is so deep here. And I know that, to that point, 12 million, 13 million, you would think looking at it is kind of what you would want to spend for free agent wide receivers, because it's like, hey, I know with OBJ's talks and all this other stuff, who wants to go to Cleveland, all, people, beating Cleveland down a little bit, but sometimes it's like, hey, do wide receivers really want to come here into a run heavy offense? So, they might want a little bit more money if they're going to come here. So sometimes I think you're hit the nail on the head. It's like, AB might say, hey, listen, let's just go get 2 wide receivers and then see what we can do if there's a guy who really wants to come here in free agency.
Yeah. And, going back to actually Chris Godwin. Sorry, Mike Williams was on the brain. I really want Mike Williams.
We can talk Mike Williams as well.
But going back to Chris Godwin, one thing that I really, really like about him is he has that Super Bowl experience. And, and I love that because, he's cool, calm, and collected in those pressure.
Playoff experience,
Yeah. So, and, we've not really, other than like Malcolm Smith last year, we really didn't have that Super Bowl experience.
I'm touching on the Mike Williams a little bit. I really do like Mike Williams. I think that he made, I'm looking at it here via spottrack.com last year, he made 4.9 million. So it's like, I think it's one of those, higher, like if we have the money to give, a free agent wide receiver, what he's looking for. So what do you guys think about a Mike Williams? I know a lot of people were talking about Amari Cooper or Michael Gallup or Allen Robinson from Chicago. Allen Robinson, is a bigger guy. He's 28, but what do you guys think about some of those names that are being thrown out there?
I have a wild card for you.
Okay.
So here's my thing. Now, a lot of people, and I feel like this is a very false narrative that I hear a lot about Stefanski's offense. Now, he will never be high in pass attempts, but he's a very efficient offense.
Yes.
It's not like we didn't, the yardage that was not gained was not due to the fact of us not throwing the ball. It was just simply we didn't have guys that were catching it. We had fumbles. We had
100%.
These pre-snap penalties that would put us so far behind to the point where if we would even like complete the pass, it's not a first down. So my thing is that here's a guy that I have. He had the quietest 900-yard season of all time, only 11 starts and almost got 1,000 yards. He has 74% catch rate and 9 yards per target. That's Christian Kirk. And he's going to be right around 11, 12 million. You can get that guy for a discount. He's a very yak-friendly wide receiver. He's fast. He can take that top off the defense there. And he's that kind of guy to where you do not need to give him 149 targets or something crazy. You can give him 77 receptions and he can turn that into 1,000 yards. That's what you want, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's now that you brought it up, because a lot of my concerns most of the time, especially I was talking to Christian about this earlier, a lot of my concerns derive from the Austin Hooper kind of experiment where, he came from a system where he was playing behind like Julio Jones and Calvin Ridley. So he was able to perform because he had big name wide receivers out there. And so a lot of these free agent wide receivers, I'm like, are you a product of your environment or whatever the case may be? Well, we're looking at Christian Kirk. We saw D-Hop go down last year. You know what I mean? And so we saw a little bit of more Christian Kirk when everybody going into a game and everybody knows that, you know, he might get the ball. And so to still perform in a kind of a situation like that is appealing to me because, you know, you want to take a little bit of pressure off of that potentially first round wide receiver or your other young wide receiver that you might pick up, depending whichever route AB goes. But it's one of those things that, you know, hey, would I like to have juice there? Yes, to kind of cultivate that and kind of instill some leadership and instill some confidence, absolutely. But am I going to pay a guy $16 million to be a motivational speaker, or you know what I mean, or am I going to pay him, you know, move that money elsewhere to bring in a guy who can actually, you know, not shake up the locker room too much, you know?
Yeah. And, you know, the more and more I think about it, I don't know if Juice is going to be back next year.
Yeah.
We'll probably find out sometime this week because Juice's agent and Andrew Berry are supposed to meet this week in Indianapolis. So this may be one of the final, this will probably be our last podcast before we know if Juice is going to be a Brown or not.
Yep.
So, I mean, loved his time in Cleveland, but if he has to go, I mean, he has to go. I mean, it's a business.
A business is a business. By the way, Christian Kirk, 25 years old.
Oh,
yeah. 25. So.
Well, and he played at Texas A&M.
Yeah.
You know who else played at Texas A&M? Myles Garrett. So very something to watch out for. Something, if it happens, you heard it here. Breaking news from the Buffalo. Well, also, if we do get Christian Kirk, I think that opens up more for in the draft for a Drake London or Treylon Burks.
Absolutely,
like,
yes,
getting
absolutely.
that
bigger wide receiver. You know, Christian Kirk at 5, I think 5'11". 5'11". So it definitely opens the door to a more bigger wide receiver friendly. So. You never know. We might have cracked it open right now. AB's brain. We'll see.
From the Buffalo. But and speaking of Drake London and Treylon Burks, 13th pick. So Mac, who do you think we go with? Like who if you're Andrew Berry, who are you taking at 13?
So I mean, it's really all between 13 is very high for a guy like Jameson Williams. Now, you ask me the first week of January, I'm telling you Jameson Williams. Mm-hmm. I'm screaming it from the rooftops. I'm getting T-shirts made. You know, with that injury, it's really hard to take him within the top 15 there. Right. Now, granted, there's no reason for me to believe that he won't bounce back. But for a guy to be wide receiver 1, I'd like for him to be available since the day that we draft him. You don't have to integrate him late in camp. You know, it's going to be a gamble whether or not he's going to be ready to go by camp. And you need to get those reps because especially like in a timing offense, reps are everything. The playbook is everything in Stefanski's offense. So looking at that, it's really a toss-up for me. Between Garrett Wilson and Drake London. Now, depending on the combine, which I know sure we'll talk later on, you know, that's going to be Treylon Burks' time to shine because he has all that raw ability, right? You know, he's 6'3", he has that 220 frame, but he might legitimately run a 4.3.
Yeah.
You know, he is a big, hefty guy. There's no reason why he should be running that fast.
Yeah.
So, now, I really think all signs do point to Garrett Wilson. You know, Drake London is great. I love his first couple steps off the line. He really gets that kind of separation. He's got that big frame. But his injury history really scares me. And, you know, now tell me to take off my tinfoil hat if I sound crazy. But all those jump balls, just going through his highlights blow me away.
Yes,
okay?
yes.
I absolutely love his tape. But it's almost like every time he comes down with a jump ball, it feels like his bones are. He just looks like a kind of guy where, you know, he's jumping 30 almost 40 feet in the air.
Yeah.
Coming down and he's falling on it. Like,
hold your breath.
Yeah, it's his injury history really scares me. I mean, Garrett Wilson, unless he completely just underperforms at the combine, he's Mr. Reliable. He catches everything thrown to him. He still gets 15 yards. He broke multiple records at Lake Travis, which is the Baker Mayfield's high school. Not that matters, but he was the second Buckeye ever to record 4 straight games over 100 yards receiving. The only other person to do that was Chris Carter, and he's a Hall of Famer.
Yes.
So he put on a pretty impressive show. His last couple of games, like almost 30 receptions, almost 400 yards, 6 TDs. And he's one of those guys to where his feet, when you watch him, it's almost like a symphony, right? He has arguably the best route running in this class.
Yes.
When you talk about a guy that beats man coverage, which the Browns need, by the way, flip on the Pittsburgh film, flip on Baltimore, and it'll show you right there. You got to get a guy that can get open and get open fast. Garrett Wilson is that guy.
I like Garrett Wilson. I like Garrett Wilson a lot, and I think that a guy who can also like some mock drafts have him falling a little bit, and then you could pick up with your 3rd round pick. I like Jahad Dotson from Penn State, 5'11", 184, and I think what I like about a lot of these guys who are probably your offense's most popular player, they require a lot of attention in a Power 5 conference, right? So everyone knows that Jahan Dodson's getting the ball, but he still is able to produce. It kind of bounced out, like, to me, off of the screen, kind of like in a situation like in the Super Bowl with Cooper Kupp. When OBJ went down, everybody knew Cooper Kupp was getting the ball, and he still scored a touchdown at the end of the game. So it's like one of those situations where you need to have a guy who's comfortable with being able to create space and comfortable with it being able to be like, hey, they're going to go to this guy. And I don't know if, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't know if I got that from DPJ being the most, confident wide receiver 1 last season. It's like, you put him in some of those roles, it's a little bit premature, maybe gives him some time to get up into that point. But I want to get guys who are comfortable with being that predominantly wide receiver 1 kind of guy. So for sure, Jahan Dotson. Obviously, Jalen Tolbert, 6'3", Justin Ross from Clemson, 6'4", bigger body guys that you can get later on. Christian Watson, North Dakota State, 6'5", a little bit under 6'5". So like you're saying, Mac, the combine is going to be very important. I know a lot of guys aren't going to want to run the 40. Some guys are like, oh, I'll do this, but not that. And it's more of a common theme these days that a lot of people are taking a little bit of a backseat toward the combine. But those are kind of the guys that I would be looking at. But definitely Garrett Wilson or Drake London would not surprise me if they go at 13. And then I'm very curious to see who they'll get in as a wide receiver too, because I truly believe that the Browns will go to wide receiver draft. This is kind of the year for it. Christian, what do you think?
Agreed. But one guy that I think that's going to shock a lot of people at this combine this week is another Ohio State receiver, and Chris Olave.
Mm-hmm.
The dude has some of like the most beautiful route running I've ever seen, and he's consistent and he's got that experience because he's played in some really big games at Ohio State.
Huge.
And I think that he's gonna show out a little bit at this combine. So I think his stock's gonna move up. I really like him. If he just shows out there and then his pro day at Ohio State, I wouldn't be mad at it at 13. So
wouldn't be mad at it at all.
Oh, exactly. I'd go as far as any of the 5 receivers, Wilson, Williams, London, Burks, or Olave, any of those guys. I would love them at 13.
Yep.
Now, I'm watching Treylon Burks' cone drill like very closely, because that is the one thing that stops me from taking that guy at 13. Because you want to talk about the most potential out of this whole group, I would say that's him. They clocked him in at 22 miles an hour game speed, which is huge. And not only do the Browns need to improve on that man-to-man separation and getting open, but they also need yards after catch. And that was just simply something that they did not have there. Now, granted, it's going to be curious to see what Anthony Schwartz's role is next year. He was injured most of the year with that concussion and kind of got buried under in the depth chart when Odell was on the field. So it's curious to see where he's at, but definitely in terms of potential, I would say that Treylon Burks is, he's going to be depending on where he goes, of course, but he's going to be that hidden gem in terms of wide receiver at the draft.
Absolutely. Is this is a quick, not to interject, Christian, but this is a little bit of a side tangent question for everyone. But if there a realistic player that if they happen to drop, that is not a wide receiver, is there a player? Obviously, it won't be a Aiden Hutchinson. It's not going to be that kind of guy. But is there a guy that if they fall to 13, that you would think about not getting a wide receiver? Is it if some magical reason why, like Derek Stingley Jr. if he drops, or a George Karlaftis? Is there a player? It doesn't matter who goes first, Christian or Mac, but is there a player that that you see that you could see the Browns taking and saying, hey, we're not going to go a wide receiver, we're going to go this route because he's clearly the best player on the board?
There's really only, I would say, very few. One of them being, Ojabo out of Michigan, pairing that edge rusher. Now, it just kind of, again, goes back to the fact of, all right, so if they don't pick a wide receiver with that first pick, what do they go from there? And that's whether or not they get that wide receiver one in free agency. And now, not saying that the guys that are going to be outside, the first 32 picks, but when you start getting into the second round, there's a lot of kind of off the ball, kind of slot wide receivers, not really necessarily complete. You can't really trust them with that big workload. So you're really kind of gambling there. But there's always kind of that guy that drops. And Andrew Berry, he doesn't get tunnel vision, right? He's always thinking about all his options, and he's always thinking about the future. So if there is a guy that's going to drop like that, I wouldn't be surprised for him to get it. But also you have to think about on the other side. With these wide receivers, are we really going to let them pass us by? No chance by 13 that both London and Garrett Wilson are both going to be there. There's no guarantee. Yeah. So, they might just have to pick wide receiver just because they can't pass upon these guys.
Yeah.
So
that's another good point, because it's not also that somebody might fall, it's just that your top 3 wide receivers are just taken. And so, Christian, what about you? Is there a guy that
okay, if Kyle Hamilton is there at 13, bro, we got to get him. I don't think he's going to make it out of the top 5, but if he makes it to 13, man, let's get the Legion of Boom in Cleveland. Let's have lockdown on the lake. Let's have it. Because him and Grant Delpit and JJ3, that'd be hard to pass on, man.
It really would. he's a big Kyle Hamilton out of Notre Dame, 6'4", 220. He's rated second overall on the PFF big board for available draftable players. So it's like right behind Aiden Hutchinson. So if there's a chance that Kyle Hamilton does drop to 13, he's one of those players that it's kind of like,
his closing speed from center field is absolutely unreal. I don't know. I just my dad's a big Notre Dame fan, so I watched a couple games this year, and the fact of even on like when a quarterback's trying to find that soft spot right behind the corner on cover 2, like that he can go sideline to sideline, and he just plays so fast. So, I definitely agree. If he's on the board, they have to take him.
Yeah. And, you could even move Grant Delpit into, a linebacker role, too. So you could have JJ3, the free safety, him at the strong safety, and then bump him up, have JOK and Grant Delpit in the middle of the field. That'd be tough.
He can be very tough to beat, and honestly, to be able to go against a guy like Lamar Jackson, that is going to be very helpful to have speed on the field. You know what I mean? So, very good point.
But one thing that I don't know if you guys have this feeling either, but Treylon Burks is starting to give me a DK Metcalf vibe.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So I think that his like you said, you want to see his cone drill. I think that might, like, if it's kind of like DK's, if he falls into let's say he falls to late first, like 31st, 32nd pick, do you move up and take 2 wide receivers in the draft, like first 2 rounds or first?
Yeah, round? I mean, it is Treylon Burks. What fascinates him about me is that not only, so he's of course fast for his size, but his acceleration is also there too. You know, he can be that kind of ball carrier. So you get now extremely premature. He hasn't even played a down of NFL football yet.
Yeah.
But it's when I look at him, I look at more of, so what could Josh Gordon do after the catch? What could obviously, he's got a bigger frame than Deebo Samuel, but maybe that kind of role for him, maybe the jet sweeps, the wide receiver screens, ways to get the ball out quick to your playmakers and ask them to make a play. Okay.
Yeah, I dig that.
That's a very good point. And if there's an ability to get, that actually is very true. It would not put it past me if AB, if he starts to fall, just trade up for Burks, because I think that, again, it's talking about those, like, one of the things I touched on is just the attention to wide receiver 1. And at Arkansas, he's clear wide receiver 1. So it's like, it's one of those things in the SECs, like, people know that he's getting the ball. And I like that. I like that. That's one of the things that I like. And just touching a little bit on Chris Olave, one of the notes that I have down for him is just his just a little touch. If I have to plug in for Chris Olave, I really like the way he's able to hide his hands for balls that are in midair. Just for better corners, they usually get to your hands before the catch, but he's able to just, not put his hands out there so early that the DB knows exactly where the ball's going. He waits to the last moment. And it's something that I've seen on his film just today. I was just watching this film today and I was like, wow, I like that trait in a guy. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So because on the NFL level, if you're doing that on college, on the NFL level, that's going to seamlessly come over. And if it's second nature to you and you were doing it, in your, 2 years in college, 1.5, 2 years in college, it's like that's going to transfer over. That's a habit that's going to transfer over. And that's one less thing you need to learn when you get to the NFL, for sure.
Yeah. And what we need most is guys that can catch the ball.
Yeah.
That's what receivers are paid for, just to catch it, Mm-hmm. But moving forward, so Manny, who is like one guy that you're excited to see in the combine? Like, who's one guy you just like, you're zoned in, you want to know everything about this guy at the combine?
I want to see as much as I can of I actually have 3. I want to see as much as I can of Drake London. Mm-hmm. I want to see. There's a lot of mystique surrounding guys that are like projected to be one or two at their position. Mm-hmm. So I want to see what, just with his peers in a situation like this, I want to see what he does, what he can show on film. I don't think that he's running the 40 at the NFL Combine. I think he said he's going to run it at a different time, but I have to double check on that. But Devontae Wyatt, defensive tackle from Georgia, I'm interested to see him. I want to see his footwork and his mobility, and you kind of get a better idea of how guys are cutting. And I know a lot of people on the medical staff are going to get a chance to really zone in on how much weight he's planting on certain footwork drills and things like that, stuff to watch out for. I want to see Devontae Wyatt, and I also want to see Sky Moore. So Sky Moore is a guy that I'm really interested in seeing a little bit more about. I know he's a little bit on the smaller end for a wide receiver, 5'10", 5'11", but I want to see his skill set, just his raw skill set. And so out of Western Michigan, and I know a lot of guys who are at smaller schools, they have a lot more to show, especially your Christian Watsons, as an FCS athlete. It's like, hey, you really got to show out. So I know a lot of some scouts are saying that he didn't, blow away the competition like he's supposed to as an FCS athlete. Just being more athletically gifted than everyone else. Mm-hmm. But I'm excited to see him on a micro scale and just really analyze him from that position for sure. So I guess there's four guys I'm looking at.
So how about you, Mac?
Obviously, I can sit here all day and talk about Traylon Burks. So I'll give you guys two different ones. Number one, I'm looking at Jordan Davis. Granted, his age is going to be outside the guardrails, so I don't know necessarily if the Browns will pick him. He is a little bit on the older side. The Browns want those kind of guys that are like around like 25, 26 when they get in that second contract. Yeah. But I don't know. I've watched him a lot this year. Now he's granted a very good run defender, but if you can't stay on the field for more than two downs, it's going to be troubling. And he struggled hard against those kind of guys that were running the hurry up offense, that were keeping guys on the field. You can't substitute. So and one of the things that I've got called out for on Twitter is saying that he just doesn't, to me, it doesn't look like he moves all that well. So I'm looking at him, seeing what his 40 time is. There's completely different reports. I read one report that he runs a 4.7, 4.8. There's another report that I see that he runs a 5.5. So I don't know what to believe anymore.
Wow.
So I'm just trying to make sense of that. Another one, and I know damn well, and I'll sell my car if this happens. No, I'm not actually gonna do that. Because in the one, I actually do need my vehicles. But I'm looking at Malik Willis. His Senior Bowl. I mean, he's got the tools. He's a very elusive kind of guy. He can run the football when needed to, and he's got the arm. But I really want to see his footwork in the pocket. Yeah. It was pretty concerning at the Senior Bowl watching him run some of those boots, which is, by the way, I know the Browns won't take him because it looked ugly with him, trying to make a boot left. It just, his footwork, it just wasn't there. So I'm looking at him and see how he does in his pro day, because in terms of all the quarterbacks, if you look at it, he's going to be more than likely the first one taken just on pure potential. He gives me those kind of like Trey Lance vibes, small school, not a lot of reps, but he's got a little bit of both in terms of athleticism and traditional. So he's definitely a guy that I would be looking at just to see from a footwork standpoint and, is mechanics wise, where he's at.
Yeah. Some guys that I'm thinking that I'm wanting to watch in the combine. I've got three, actually. One is Chris Olave. Mm-hmm. I mean, I just want to see how he does route running and all that. And just 40 time. That'd be nice to see. If we can get us to like a 4.4, 4.3, 4.5, whatever he wants to run. Whatever he decides to run that day. Another guy that kind of intrigues me is Bailey Zappi. I've been kind of high on him since the end of the NFL season. I think we need to get another guy in instead of Case Keenum. That contract's kind of hefty for a backup. So we get another guy probably 4th, 5th round contract-wise. I mean, let him sit under there. And, I mean, he broke the record for most touchdowns and yards in a season. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, he's decent. I mean, Western Kentucky is
I was about to say a 4th or a 5th round flyer. I mean, that's not too shabby.
Not at all. If he drops that position, I would not hate it if they did go the Bailey Zappi route.
Yeah, and my last guy, same as you, Manny, is Devontae Wyatt. I'm excited to see what he puts up because, I watched a little bit of Georgia and had to watch them dominate my Wildcats. So I got to see a little bit of Jordan Davis and that front four with Devontae Wyatt. Mm-hmm. And, I mean, they kind of piggybacked off each other and, they just dominated the line of the offensive line. And Kentucky's known for their offensive line nationally. So they produced quite a bit of, and they got Darian Kennard coming out and he's one of the top tackles. So I'm just excited to see him.
It's definitely going to be very exciting. And, going back to Mac's point about Jordan Davis, 6'7", 360 pounds. It's like
Yes.
if this guy, if you can find a way to get healthy, you know what I mean? I just and to not have that be a health concern in the NFL and have footwork, like just work on footwork this offseason.
Mm-hmm.
I personally would not mind at all. Like, if Jordan Davis, I don't even know if Jordan Davis is going to fall, but if Jordan Davis falls to that position and falls too deep, I would not mind the Browns trading up and trying to figure out a way to get their hands on him because he's a stud. He's going to be a workhorse. So I'm really excited to see him in the NFL Combine.
Yeah, he could be like a Vince Wilfork.
Yeah, exactly. Just plug up
the Browns kind of need that kind of guy, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people now, and here's me digging again, but I was recently looking across some stats because it's just when you look at the Browns defensive stats, like on the surface level, right? Just overall yards that they gave up per year, they look like a pretty top team, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So since Cincinnati, that first game against Cincinnati, they averaged giving up like 130, 140 yards a game.
Mm-hmm.
So it's they need those kind of run stuffers. And when you look at it, we still don't know what's going on. Sorry, 136 yards per game. I was pulling that. But you look at Malik McDowell, we don't know his situation and whether or not he's even going to be, a member of society in a couple months. His still situation's going out.
It's still very serious. Yeah.
I know damn well Andrew Berry is not paying for Malik Jackson again on a 1-year deal. I mean, we're talking about like 19 missed tackles as an interior guy. Like it's just it's definitely going to be a point of emphasis at their D tackle position. And again, just like how you said, Manny, Jordan Davis, if he can get that healthy, right? Like if he is the kind of guy where, now granted, I'll never argue a guy that can move at his weight, but if he can't move at the weight that he's at, he's got a dropper. He's not going to be able to make it. I mean, look at a guy like Albert Hainsworth, right? He was that big badass over the middle. And then, he went over to the Redskins, he got paid and he missed all his weigh-ins and, wasn't very good after that because he couldn't move. So, definitely got to look at.
We kind of had that problem this year with Andrew Billings.
Yeah.
He came off the COVID year, and we were all expecting him to be a good rotational piece and big dud. So, and he just couldn't move, man. It just looked like he was like hobbling.
They picked him over Larry Ogunjobi, and that's what I still can't get over.
It is tough. It is tough. I think it's something that I was thinking now that you're talking about just potential defensive linemen. Would you consider, if you got a Jordan Davis or Devontae Wyatt, would you consider bringing back, speaking of Larry Ogunjobi, would you consider bringing back Larry Ogunjobi or Sheldon Richardson? I know they're free agents. I think also I have to check on, I think Calais Campbell, 6'8". I think so. It's something that is very intriguing. I'm 5'10". I would be terrified to walk up to a line and see Jordan Davis 6'7" and then Calais Campbell.
Along with Myles Garrett
and
exactly.
I think it's not fair.
Exactly.
Quite frankly. So you have some options at defensive tackle. Would you consider bringing back guys like that just to complement Jordan Davis or Devontae Wyatt?
Well, yeah, absolutely. You gotta, especially because free agency is a lot deeper at D tackle than the draft is. You gotta attack that first. Now, in terms of defensive line, all D tackles are not the same.
Yes.
They need to get now, and especially because we knew by the end of the year Malik Jackson was more than likely just not going to be here. So McDowell's situation just kind of flipped everything on its head. And the Browns really need they need that one technique, the guy that can go inside shade of the guard, outside shade of the center there, who is the run stuffer, and then you have a three technique, a guy like Sheldon Richardson. Now I do think he's a little bit older, a little bit more expensive, but bringing Larry back, he's been in the system, 7 sacks, 24 pressures this year, and he flourished. Now, for a backup plan, if they can't get Larry Ogunjobi, because the Bengals have a tough decision, next year. They have to pay a lot of guys. They're not going to be able to pay both Larry and BJ Hill, who is his backup.
Yes.
BJ Hill started only 2 games, still got 5.5 sacks. And to play defensive tackle, now granted, you can, especially in Joe Woods's, 4-2-5 defense, you can make 2 arguments. One would be defensive tackle isn't that important, but in all reality it is, because there's a lot of pressure put on those guys. But in terms of pass rushing situations, you have Myles Garrett and more than likely Jadeveon Clowney on the other side. They're screaming off the edge. The first thing the quarterbacks want to do is step up. So you need kind of guys that are that strong, and Larry is a very strong guy. Now, he's a smaller 3 technique, but he can still push the pocket, which is why he got a lot of his sacks, because he was there. You had a guy like Trey Hendrickson that would come screaming off the edge. The quarterback would step up, and he's right there for the sack, which is how he got a lot of his numbers. So definitely bringing back a guy like Larry that's been through the system, that'd be a great idea.
I think I would like to see I wanted to see a little bit more film of Tommy Togiai.
Yes.
So I would like to see a little bit more of him. And I don't really have too many high hopes for him, but I would like to see him succeed, obviously. A little bit of a, kind of a bias because he is a Ohio State guy. But so, I really do want to see this defensive line be addressed. Because if you put guys in there that can succeed, and again, Jordan Davis, Devontae Wyatt, because I don't know if Jordan Davis is going to fall, but I'm pretty sure we can get Devontae Wyatt with our second pick. But I think that would be very advantageous to Myles Garrett and Jadeveon Clowney. I really like it. It might be one of the determining factors for Jadeveon to say, "Hey, let me not ask for the Brinks truck to be for another 1 year, 2 year kind of situation." And I see with the guys you're bringing in on this line, it can help me out. I won't get so fatigued. It's a longer season. I see some really good studs, and obviously playing alongside Myles Garrett. So I personally like it. I personally would totally push for that for sure.
Yeah, and one guy that kind of intrigues me that's already on the Browns roster is Jordan Elliott.
Yeah.
Last year we didn't really get to see him as much, I guess, because we had Malik McDowell and Malik Jackson out there a little bit more, and which we really didn't get to see Tommy Togiai either. But I mean, going from his rookie year 2 years ago into the second year, I mean, I was kind of big on him. I was like, man, he might show out. Like, might be Malik McDowell and Jordan Elliott's, like, they're going to be leading the pack, and then you just kind of never saw him. So, I mean, he might put in that work this offseason, come in as an underdog, take the job.
I do like his motor, and I will say this, he's been put out there in a couple pass rush situations. I remember him being big in the Steelers game. Now, granted, he messed up their kicker.
That was
like everybody, and like even my buddies, we were looking at each other. We're like, dude, I don't even know if that was legal, but that was but it's just his relentless pursuit. Like, he does give a lot of effort out there. Definitely, he's worth bringing in on a flyer back into camp. And it's going to be a prove it year for him. But yeah, I would like to see where he's at year 3.
Yeah. And, we need to have somebody step up, because you don't know if we're going to be able to get that guy in free agency. But, I mean, as you said, it is a pretty deep class, or however you want to say it, free agency. But, man, I just keep thinking about Calais Campbell. The likelihood of him coming to Cleveland, because he's going to want a big payday, because he's Calais Campbell. Crying out loud. But I'm really excited, and I also want to see Takk McKinley get back healthy. I feel really sorry for his torn Achilles.
Even if he's not on the Browns, man, I want nothing more than Takk to be healthy. next year.
I mean, he was playing his heart out, and I really liked him a lot. So wherever he goes, we wish him the best. We wish he's doing hope he's doing healthy. But yeah, back to your point about, if there could be any chance of Calais Campbell or even bringing Larry back, I'm all for it, and I'm very excited for it for sure.
Well, here's a guy that nobody's talking about at defensive tackle position in free agency, Akeem Hicks. He's only 32.
Wow.
Yes.
6'4", 335. Now the Browns can get him on a discount, simply because his injuries last year, he didn't play a lot of games. He couldn't rack up the stats. He got 29 pressures 2 years ago.
Wow.
Like he still got it. And he's that mean guy in the middle. He is a big body presence. He can be a run defender, and that's what the Browns need. They need a big, strong body that can push the pocket and provide that kind of run support.
And give some experience to whoever comes in through the draft, for sure.
That too.
You know what I mean? And I think that is two birds, one stone right there.
Yep.
And so that is a really good point. And that's something I'm going to write him down, because that is a really good point too.
Yeah, and he's like a perennial Pro Bowler, All-Pro D tackle, so getting that big man experience, and hopefully it goes into a Super Bowl. You never know. Super Bowl, Super Browns. Yeah, I'm that man that says Super Bowl after that horrific year we just had. But
I'm telling you, all signs are pointing Browns will be in the playoffs next year.
Oh yeah, because like the defense down the stretch, like you said, since the Bengals game, what did you say? 136 yards per game.
Yeah.
Yes.
That defense, had we just averaged, what was it, like 20 points a game that second half of the season, we're in the playoffs. We've won the AFC North. Close. We're probably second place, third place.
I mean, hell, a couple field goals. Even with how bad the offense was, just a couple field goals, and a shout out Scottish Hammer. Thank you for your time here in Cleveland. But that drop punt, that was
week 1, Kansas City.
Yeah,
that it's
heartbreaking.
It's stuff like that. That's like that game was walking away from that game. Honestly, I was like, hey, it's the Kansas City Chiefs. But then the Kansas City Chiefs started to fall off a little bit later in the season. And it was, earlier in the season, I'm like, are we kidding me? We lost to the Chiefs. We lost to this team.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like, I wanted to have that game back, but then obviously they came back. But it's like, it's little plays like that. And it's, I hope that we address kicker as well. No offense to Chase McLaughlin, but I'd like, in this division, we have I believe we have the best division for kickers in the NFL. You're looking at Chris Boswell, Justin Tucker, and then now you have McPherson. So it's like, I would like the Browns to address kicker there. It's a game that is averaging between 3 points, 4 points each game. So it's like you want to address that kind of situation.
Yeah.
And honestly, like you guys are saying, I'm very optimistic because the Steelers are going to have their quarterback problems, and they're going to have to figure out what they're going to do, but under center. And they have the second hardest division going into next year because they finished second in the AFC North. And so I think that I'm looking at, hey, the only person I'm really concerned about is Baltimore Ravens, because they're going to come back healthy and they're going to have the easiest schedule. And we know that the Bengals had the easiest schedule this year, and look what it ended up. I'm not saying that, hey, they had to still beat their teams, obviously, but having the easiest schedule does help. So,
J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards coming back. I mean, that's a huge boost to their offense.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So that's a point taken, really, for sure.
Yeah, and we got to get a kicker that can kick in the cold and the wind. Yeah. Because, these kickers, they'll kick good like the first half of the season, and then when the weather changes, and we start getting closer to winter, it's like they can't kick anymore.
I was tweeting it out. I was this close. I remember my tweets. I was gonna buy a McLaughlin jersey because that's how excited I was for him.
He was automatic from 50.
Automatic.
Like how do you go automatic from 50 and then all of a sudden
missing?
He got one kick that was blocked.
Yeah.
And then it was just all hell
downhill from there.
Yep.
And, and to your point, Christian, I don't know if it was the weather. And Mag, honestly, was it the block kick? Because sometimes that can get to you. As a kicker, that's one of you. Like, I know your only job is to kick, and sometimes it's out of your control. Sometimes somebody gets their hand on the ball, but like it's like once you got that kick blocked, it's like, Chase, come on, man. It's I know sometimes we were going for it on fourth down a lot, but it's like the point where if you have an automatic kicker back there, it's like, hey.
It changes your whole dynamic. It changes how far you need to get upfield. You don't no longer need to score a touchdown if you're down by 2 points. Yeah. And I used to listen to before he got like big. I used to listen to a lot of Pat McAfee.
Mm-hmm.
And one of his first guests that he would bring on would be Adam Vinatieri.
Yeah.
And the more and more that he would talk about, being his holder and going through and being a kicker at WVU, it's all between the ears, and it's your mechanics, how many steps that you're taking, how far your leg is swinging. Are you going to follow through all the way? Okay, well, I missed it to the right this time. So like, do I need to adjust my kick now? Do I not need to adjust it? Do I just need to go out there and smack the hell out of it? It's probably one of the mentally toughest positions in all of sports, because you make it, you are the hero, you miss it, and more than likely you're getting cut next week. Like terrible kickers are a dime a dozen in the NFL. I mean, there's plenty, because kicking is a very hard thing to do, right? Yeah. There's very few elite guys. So it's just, it's almost like you want to do like an in-depth interview with him, right? You want to just like kind of just see what's cooking in between the ears, because that's the only thing that I can explain other than going into detail about a Phil Dawson curse. But
I think he has to have the stamp of approval on our next kicker. Like, he has to sit down. They got to hang out for like at least 2 months. And they got to go kick together. And because, like, I mean, he was like the perfect kicker.
I would hold a kicking camp down at First Energy, and I would just say, "Hey, this is going to be a walk in the park compared to what you're kicking in December. I want to see what you're doing right now."
Yeah, that's true. And the question I have for both of you now that we're talking about kickers is, how likely are you, if you guys we'll take turns and ask both of you, but how likely, if you were Andrew Berry, would you consider taking a kicker in this draft if there were one you really liked? And if there is one you would like right now, who would it be? I mean, I know there's Cameron Dicker, Jordan Stout, Matt Raza out of San Diego State, or is there somebody in free agency, or would you just not, would you not draft a kicker, or would you pull a Cincinnati Bengals and draft a kicker?
In terms of free agency, it's going to be really hard to find, a really good free agent kicker. Now, I'm not at all like well versed in terms of like college kickers, but I would definitely say, I mean, you have to at least get it at some point. You need to have more than one kicker coming into camp, right? Because you need to get that competition. And not only just for the sole fact of, competition breeds the best, but you want to put these guys under pressure situations.
Yeah.
You want to see where it's at, because
anytime they get,
you want to like, the fact that you're bringing in two guys and you're looking at them and saying, hey, 100% chance one of you is not going to have a job in a couple days. That's like, it just kind of raises the stakes, and it allows to like get as much pressure simulated into the situation as possible, which is what you want to do for kickers, because I mean, you can go out and you can kick it. I mean, most of these guys, right, they post videos of them kicking 65 yarders out on the turf, and they're just putting it right through. Well, of course, it's almost like an NBA player, practicing half court shots. I mean, nobody's in his face. Right. So
very good point.
It's, you need to have that competition. Now, more than likely, I would say if you ask me free agency or draft, more than likely it's probably going to be draft. I'm sure that Andrew Berry and Paul T. Podesta have some kind of stat and percentage in terms of efficiency of kickers, and I bet you they have at least one or two guys circled. So I would say that they pick up a kicker in the draft. Now, I have no idea who, but definitely they're walking out with a kicker. on draft night.
I totally agree. Put the pressure on them, put the competition on them, breathe down their necks. I don't care what you do. Make them parallel park in tight situations, make them sweat in the off season, because I think that we need a kicker who is confident, cool, collected. I'm hearing all these stories about McPherson in the playoffs saying, we're going to the Super Bowl and all this stuff before he starts kicking. And like, we're going to it's stuff that I want out of my kicker, and I'm like, you got to be kidding me! I want that. So, Christian, what do you think?
So, if we do go the free agency route, I want Nick Folk. He played, I think, about 5-6 years with the Patriots, and he played about 7 years with the Jets. So he's a cold weather kicker. He's been
very
pretty
accurate
consistent.
cold weather kicker.
Yeah.
Yes.
And Super Bowl winning kicker too.
Yeah.
So, he played a big part in that one against the Rams.
Yeah.
So
that's a very good point. I think, to be honest with you, I like what I've seen out of Colquitt, our punter, toward the end of the season. I love the punts coming in out of nowhere for the Scottish Hammer. I forgot which punt it was during which game, but it was right within the 10-yard line, and I was like, oh, let's go. We got ourselves a punter, and now it's just a kicker. So Nick Folk is a guy that I'm very interested in as well, and that you brought it up because kicker this postseason, but this playoffs, like you've seen, kickers are really important.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. And it's kickers, man. I tell you, they're very important. Can't stress it enough.
And another guy that catches my eye is that kid from Texas, Cameron Dicker. I just want him to share off the fact of his name, so we can just say Dicker the kicker.
Oh, you have no idea.
That would sell so many jerseys. It's a business.
The city
move.
of Cleveland.
It's a business. It's a business.
They would have too much fun.
Way too much.
Oh
fun.
yeah, and like
myself included. Absolutely. Oh yeah, I'm getting a flat.
Oh yeah, I'm getting the jersey as soon as we draft him.
We'll buy a $50 T-shirt.
Yeah, and then GV Artworks would have the T-shirts up within probably 2 hours.
Easy.
All the T-shirt companies would have it. And it's just a smart move because everybody would love him. And if he had the career just sort of like Phil Dawson did in Cleveland, man, he's solidified naming the Ring of Honor.
Just be consistent. Right. Just be consistent. And that's something that I could really I think most Browns fans will ask for, because we see the Chase McLaughlins, the beautiful first half of the seasons. We're thinking he's one of the best kickers in the league. And then all of a sudden you have a fall off. So it's like, I personally would just wish for and hope for consistency at the kicker position.
Just make anything under 45. That's all I ask.
Yeah.
It's just like, if I'm saying a prayer for a 38-yard field goal, like, that's not good.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's so true. That is very true. So it's something to be addressed, whether it, through the draft or through free agency. Young Hoku, kicker from Atlanta, I know he's going to be a free agent. So it's like, you have options. So needs to be addressed. But AB, I trust AB.
And AB we trust.
Absolutely.
He's going to get it done for sure.
Yeah. I think we've covered about everything on the agenda today.
Yeah, we did. We even got the kickers, man.
Yeah, we even got the kickers. But, man, I really appreciate you hopping on. We had the Buffalo on Down with the Browns.
What a pleasure, man. It's been awesome.
It's an absolute honor, honestly. It's one of those guys, because especially like, I just started like really getting into, now granted, I've been on Browns Twitter since like 2012, like the OG McNeil, where he was like the godfather of Browns.
Oh
Twitter,
yeah,
right?
dude, I remember.
But like I didn't really start going big till like this year, and like, being on a couple different podcasts, like writing my own pieces. Like the fact that you guys like reached out, like, now granted, like I probably shouldn't admit this, but like I may or may not have like swerved hard in like the left lane of 480 when I saw that message on my phone. I was like, dude, podcast opportunity? Like, what? No, I was flipping out. I was like, no way. And I was like, dude, I gotta like text something like to him right away, because then I'm gonna like totally forget about it. And I don't want to like. But no, honestly, it's a huge honor. One, that you guys would even like think of me, and two, for me to be on the podcast and just to talk Browns, because there's one thing that I just love like more than life itself, and it sounds crazy, but like I love Browns and I love talking Browns. So it's been a pleasure, fellas.
Let's
it really
go.
has.
Oh man, we appreciate you hopping on with us. And well, how's it feel to get down with the Browns?
It feels good, baby. It feels good.
If you want to follow Mac, what's that at again?
It's THA_Buffalo. So it's the Buffalo.
Let's go.
Go give him a follow and check out his work on
Good follow.
Cleveland.
Very good follow.
CMP. And well, it was good talking with you boys, and we'll catch y'all in the next episode.
All right, catch you guys later.
Go Browns.
Go Browns.
Orange and brown, running the town. The MC champs, I'm loving the sound. Ready for steel, ready to rave, ready for fall, ready to bang. See us, we coming, we styling, we loud, we passing, we running, we touching it down. Cleveland the city, we good, we did it, we been through the gritty, we loving the Browns. Never will chill, never will lounge. We are the dogs, we are the hounds. Never the fears, we blew and we bleeding, so get on your feet, cause we are the Browns.